and welcome back to Breaking Ground on iProperty Radio with myself, Carol Tallon. You can contact us on social media at iProperty Radio or email hello@ipropertyradio.com. This week, I'm chatting to Rob Fox, CEO of Site Passport. Site Passport is a technology platform that provides main contractors with the right data and the right processes to make sure they select the right subcontractors, the ones that are the right fit for the wide and complex requirements of each project. Rob, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no, thanks, Carol. It's great to be on the program with you today.
So, Rob, you come from a background in civil engineering and construction. How has that led into Site Passport?
Yeah, no, great question, Carol. Yeah, no, I'm a civil engineer originally, trained as a civil engineer, but I worked in main contracting with some of the largest contractors in Ireland and Australia for about 20 years. And I suppose over that time, I saw that there was one common problem in construction is, sourcing the right supply chain, sourcing the right subcontractors. Most people in construction would know that 85% of the value of a construction project is in the supply chain, in the subcontractor suppliers. So if you get that bit right, you have a good chance of having a successful project. So I felt there was a gap in the market to develop out a software solution, a technology solution that would help help main contractors with the process of, I suppose, finding and sourcing new subcontractors, getting to know them in a kind of a digital way, finding out what their capabilities are, building a relationship with them, because relationships are obviously key in construction, and then getting to know the contracts in a way that gave both parties the confidence that if they were going to work together on a project, that they were both likely to succeed on that project.
The win-win is a difficult one to manage. I mean, you refer to 80 or 85% of the value being in the supply chain, but that when we look at value, then we're also looking at risk. And on the basis of construction, the process of construction, the business of construction is about de-risking. How much risk in a project actually lies across the supply chain?
Yeah, again, I mean, I suppose you could say quite bluntly that 85% of risk lies across it, 85% of value, 85% of opportunity, and 85% of risk. And I suppose that is the purpose of our solution, is to help, I suppose, main contractors get that balance. Because historically in construction, there has been a tendency to go for the lowest price. That's biased towards price rather than quality or technical or capabilities. So our solution helps main contractors make that balanced decision to get that, I suppose, win-win. Because it is important that main contractors select subcontractors that are capable for the job, will complete the job to a standard, and that they will make money. If everybody isn't succeeding and making money, that's a problem for everybody. So it is that fine balance of, as you say, getting that win-win. But we believe with the right processes and the right information, you have a much better chance of being successful in that win-win proposition.
I know that you have more than 2 decades of experience in the industry across Ireland and Australia, but Site Passport is more than 5 years in operation now. Or have you seen, or are you starting to see the consequences of this tendency towards going towards the lowest value or the lowest priced provider?
Yeah, I mean, it has improved, certainly over the 20 years live construction has improved, and over the last 5 years it has improved. And some of that is driven by clients, particularly the more sophisticated construction clients out there that are, at the tendering stage when main contractors are tendering for business, they are assigning 30-40% of the marks to win a project to the technical and the quality side, and maybe 60 or 7% of the price. So there still is a big weighting towards price, but it has improved. I suppose for us, it's a question of, getting the right information on the quality side and on the technical side to make sure that there's a fair and robust process, coming out of that, situation. So it has improved, but at the end of the day, construction is like any other business. People have to make money, and main contractors have to return a profit. And, if they've budgets and they've margins that have to hit. So it is very, very difficult to get that right. But what we say is that, very often main contractors don't have access to enough information to make that decision. So the default is, well, we go to maybe the lowest price, or somebody we've used before and they have a good price, and there's a kind of a temptation to go for those companies. And we're going to say, well, hang on, just before you make that decision, use a little bit more information, a bit more data, slightly better process to be able to actually, rank the companies in relation to the balance between their price and their capabilities. And sometimes contractors are surprised, the answer that comes out of that. They might have thought this company was the best fit, but when they actually use our system, they kind of go, actually, hang on, this company actually looks like a better fit.
You used a term there that isn't one that I was used to hearing in the construction industry, but increasingly over the last few years, I'm hearing top tier, like tier one contractors using it, and that's referring to sophisticated clients. So what does that mean in the construction market today? Like, there's, we always talk about the difference in tiers of the main contractors, but actually there's quite a difference in tiers of clients as well. So what is a sophisticated client in the current construction market?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Carol. And I suppose for me, a sophisticated construction client is probably usually a client that has been engaged or has engaged in multiple construction projects. So they themselves as a company have learned the process construction of what goes wrong. And so through that learning and through that kind of repeated process, they just become naturally more sophisticated. They tend to then have their own in-house construction people, or certainly cost consultant type people. So just as a company, they have more experience within the company. They have more people that have that experience within the company, and that's a good thing in lots of ways, because a sophisticated client might be more demanding, but generally they know what they want, and they know what they want more earlier on in the process. Other type of clients who, if they're doing a construction project, might be their first time out doing a construction project with a design team and a construction company, and their expectations about how it works, or their understanding how it works, can be completely different. And they're learning, as they go through this first project, and very often that's a very painful experience. I liken it to, most people on a domestic level will probably only build a house or renovate the house once, and most people will tell you that that's a painful experience. Just because lack of knowledge and experience about the whole thing. If they do it the second time, which they probably wouldn't, but to do the second time, they'd understand it better. So that's how I would describe a sophisticated client. They just have more experience and understanding of the construction process.
So when you have an experienced client with an experienced main contractor, how for repeat business, because obviously we've discussed challenges across our procurement and across our current bidding and tender system, how important are relationships for driving new business, even where it's repeat business?
Yeah, listen, relationships are massive. Everything comes down to trust in lots of industries, but particularly in construction, where there's very often so many unknowns and so many variables, and even with the best intentions and the best experience, it's very hard to box off all the unknowns and all the risk in the construction project. But certainly what we see between clients and main contractors, and also then between main contractors, subcontractors, is that trust. And that trust is built out of, again, having an understanding and experience of each other, and maybe where the strengths and weaknesses lie. And, you can manage those strengths and weaknesses as a team. And, that's really important. But that's not to say that, new relationships can't be formed, because, it's important for everybody that things are freshened up, because, things can stagnate in relationships, and the relationships can, sometimes not work out. And, so it's what we see more and more with the subcontractors and also with main contractors is people understand the need to diversify, that it's good to have repeat clients and have close relationship with clients, but it's also good to bring in new clients, or, whether you're a subcontractor or main contractor, and just freshens it up. And the danger, though, I suppose, a lot of time I think particularly for main contractors, is when they're building those new relationships, is that because they're putting so much, they're so reliant on the subcontractors to build the job for them, essentially, and they're putting so much trust in them, it's hard to trust a company or people that you don't know. And so that's why people very often will just default back to, well, we'll use the company we used before. And that sometimes works out perfectly, and sometimes that's a disaster, because the previous job might have been a university, and the next job might be a data center. So what we believe, that trust is built for us, and trust is built on knowledge. And even if you haven't worked with a company before, if you can gather enough knowledge about that company and get enough data about that company, you then start to build that trust in a way, that actually makes sense. You don't have to know somebody. If we can't all keep doing business with each other. You have to start some stage to do business with new companies, and it's just about taking that leap of faith. Requires having a little extra information, which is where we come in.
Yeah, and I suppose a lot of this comes back to the maturity of the supply chain in Ireland and the robustness of it. And if main contractors don't provide for a win-win situation, then the construction chain in Ireland can't become as robust financially and experience-wise as it needs to. So where does Site Passport come in?
Yeah, so I suppose we would describe ourselves as a source to contract platform, and essentially we provide a full range of services from helping main contractors source new supply chain. It's a bit like some degrees, some people call it it's like a dating website, in that people exchange information about themselves that maybe don't know each other that well already, and through that exchange of information, it starts to become clear. Well, as a main contractor, these are the subcontractors that I didn't know before that I'm getting to know, and I'm starting to build up some sort of trust and relationship and rapport with them. And then there'll be other companies who say, well, actually, they look like they were good fit, but they weren't. So there's this process of introducing main contractors to new subcontractors, but help them get to know each other, and both sides of the equation get to know each other. And then, there's a point where, okay, this is just a process of saying, okay, well, main contractor might say, subcontractor, we know you well enough now, will you price this job for us? And it might be a smaller job, because again, they don't want to give them a big job straight away, but they can manage all that through Site Passport, through our tender and procurement systems. And again, that's just also a way of standardizing the interaction for the supply chain, because when we talk to subcontractors a lot, they get frustrated that even within the one company, the way they're dealt with and the way they're communicated with can vary greatly. So, they like the consistency that Site Passport brings in relation to managing that relationship. And a lot of it is, around pricing and providing not very exciting information around insurances that everybody has to do, but it streamlines it for both sides of the equation, just to make it a little less painful to get through that process, and ultimately to make sure that at the end of that process, both the main contractor and the subcontractor know what they're getting into. They're both satisfied that they're going to be a good partners for each other, and that they have a good chance of succeeding together, because that's what it's all about.
And Rob, I'm so conscious, and we covered a lot of the show, but right now construction is being hit from all sides. So whether it's down to project viability, whether it's labor shortages, materials shortages, inflation, it seems to be one thing after the other. How can a main contractor bring in new supply chain during such a time of uncertainty?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose a lot of that is born out of necessity. I mean, if your current supply chain are supplying everything that you need when you need it for the price you need it, well, you probably don't have a problem. But there's very few contractors, could say that. So they're having to go outside their comfort zone out of necessity. And, that is, a discomfort for a lot of companies. But what they're realizing is actually, there is a bigger, broader supply chain out there that we could be doing business with. And, maybe some of those companies, have capacity, or, have materials available, or, have that they themselves have figured out their own supply chain further down the line. That means that, now that they are a good option, both from a price and a delivery perspective. And, so it's just giving people access to that broader supply chain, whether it's subcontractors in Ireland or suppliers abroad. It's, it's all about having options. But, there are a lot of options out there. So what we try and help main contractors with is finding out which of those options are the best fit for them as quickly as possible.
In terms of, I mean, I touched on it earlier, just about the maturity of the supply chain. Innovation across the industry is moving quickly. So whether we're going from BIM to ESG driven metrics that require technology, and particularly our sustainability is nowhere near where it needs to be across Irish construction. And obviously there's an element of leading from the front by main contractors and the state being one of the biggest buyers in the country. But across the supply chain, how ready is Ireland's supply chain for how for this shift that's happening towards sustainability and the need for a more digitized approach?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you take of all those elements, you take ESG. I mean, digitalization is happening, and BIM is happening, and lots of contractors say to us, BIM is really a small part of our lives. It's not the be all and end all that people kind of make it out to be. They participate in the BIM world because they have to, but a lot of them don't often see huge benefits of the BIM world. I think there are huge benefits in BIM when BIM itself really matures into being what it could be, which is this central intelligence that is everything you need to know about a construction project, but it's still getting there. But if you take example of ESG, which I think is obviously a massive area in every industry, but particularly in construction, I think the demand is for ESG, evidence, if you want to call that, or information is starting to come from, again, some of the more sophisticated clients. And I think, at the moment, there's still a little bit of window dressing around ESG. I think, because it's such a difficult nut to crack, people are still accepting, well, that if a company has some accreditation or a product has some sort of accreditation, that nearly ticks the box and gets them the pass on the ESG. We all know that's not sustainable in itself. Like that, people have to be able to measure the impact. And again, it comes down to data. The data really in construction comes from the construction materials and products that are used and where they come from. And there are some companies that I've met at events in the UK and different countries and in Ireland where they're really geared up. They have all their data. They would be able to upload it into a system that would calculate exactly what the impact is and what the carbon might be. It's just that, there is no central system to put this into. So there's lots of people building ESG systems, but a bit like lots of things, these systems aren't going to talk to each other. So that's going to be a challenge. But I suppose one thing we're working on at the moment, Carol, is, this is a journey. No matter how quickly the whole sustainability, environmental, world needs to move, it is only going to move so quickly, and only can move so quickly. And I suppose for us, it's a question of, clients bringing main contractors on the journey, and main contractors bring the supply chain on that journey. And some of that is, go back to your point, is trying to understand. We're working with a couple of clients, trying to help them understand who in the supply chain is in the tier one of the ESG world, and who's here and who's here. And then if my client is, a tier one client needs all this information, there's no point talking to these guys down here. These are the guys I have to go to. They're dangerous. These guys might be more expensive and there might be bigger demand, but you got to know who in the market is ESG ready. And, that's a process of asking questions to get that answer.
It occurs to me then that a very similar situation would arise around offsite and other modern methods of construction, where we've seen the supply chain essentially being acquired by principally main clients. So where does that leave, at a time when the construction industry has recognized the need to change, is being not just supported, but really this is being promoted by the state for the first time. While it might be many years too late, it is actually being supported, this move to a move away from maybe traditional construction, or at least introducing and giving, I suppose, the supports needed to invest in offsite and other modern methods of construction. But the reality is, for main contractors to be able to jump in, they need a supply chain. So that's almost like building from the ground up, which is difficult when the early adopters have essentially acquired, I don't want to use the word cannibalized, but they have certainly acquired the supply chain. Ireland is only a certain size. We will only be able to support so many manufacturers on the island. Is this going to cause limitations for the MMC supply chain?
Yeah, potentially it is. If some of the bigger players are able to, suck up all of the capacity by acquisition or otherwise, that definitely presents a problem. But I suppose, there is only, for us, it's about the overall capacity within the country and within the world. There is only so much capacity, out there, obviously. And I think, the one thing about construction is, and the construction industry, when it needs to be, it can be very, very innovative. At times it can be a little bit slow, but when push comes to shove, it's incredible what construction companies can do. I saw it myself when I was in construction. You think these projects are so complicated and they're never going to get finished, and everybody rows together, everybody pulls out all the stops and does what they need to do, and they make it happen. So the construction industry is very good at making things happen. It's just that there is a support network needed, as you say, both from the government. But I think, this self-reliance, or this, reliance that everybody has on construction is becoming more and more, concrete. And, I think that the industry and the main players in the industry, or all the big contract industry, probably need to look at it and say, well, this can't be a zero-sum game, because I don't want to have to win. I don't want to have you to lose for me to win. And there's always a bit of that in every industry, but that's not sustainable within construction. There's only so many products out there, materials, but there's only so many resources. And unless those resources get used in a more planned and smarter way, things are only going to disimprove. And that's one of the great things about offsite construction, is that, it is more efficient, and then construction sites become more efficient, and, you're dropping in units that require less labor on site. And, automation and robotics and all that will come more and more into play. But as you said, like, that's a huge investment, and that's going to take a long time. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 5, even to 10 years as that plays out, because it's going to take 5 or 10 years to get to a stage where, you have an automated construction site.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like that far into the future, but look, I absolutely agree with you. I think Ireland's construction industry is absolutely very good at making things happen. We've particularly seen it in the last 2 years. And to be fair, Site Passport is very good at making things happen. There's been an exciting announcement for the company.
Yes, Carol, it has indeed. Yeah, we've been raising some investment in 2022, and we've been very successful with that. And we've been working very closely with Enterprise Ireland, who have been a great support to us over the years as well. And with that, we will be launching our services in the UK and in other European countries. We see a huge demand for our services. So yeah, no, it's very exciting, and we're looking forward to growing our team and growing our client base and spreading our wings out across Europe.
Well done. Congratulations to the whole team, because it's tempting when you see these funding announcements to position a company as a startup, whereas you're established 5 years. This is part of the scaling process.
Yes.
And certainly, I think that you will likely find what many of our clients, and particularly contractors who operate in the Irish and the UK market, they report back that the supply chain there is a much more mature one. So therefore, the opportunities are much greater. And there's a much fairer approach. So in fact, it's probably easier to secure a win-win situation. So it sounds maybe the UK market is exactly a good fit for Site Passport. So congratulations. I think this is a fantastic achievement, and I look forward to seeing what you and the team do over the next coming months. And we hope to touch base with you again when you've dipped your toe in the UK market and you're in a position to report back.
Yeah, no, great. Thanks, Carol. Thanks for that. And listen, thanks for having me on today. I really enjoyed that.
I'm delighted. It was great to learn more about what yourself and the team at Site Passport do. So that was Rob Fox, CEO of Site Passport, and we need to take a quick break. Stay tuned.